It's my pleasure to welcome you here to the Clark Howard Show, where our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you so you make better financial decisions in your life. And happy Friday to you. Happy Labor Day holiday eve. And I know I'm happy because this is my opportunity every week to learn from you. I love Clark Stinks. And I remember forever ago when we started Clark Stinks, people thought we were crazy like a fox, because it's so important to grow as an individual. And you help me do that and help me serve people better. So you get to hear that straight ahead. And with it being Labor Day coming up, we're going to talk about people that are unhappy in what you do. You spend so much time at work. I want to talk about what you should really think about when you are unhappy at a job so that you don't dread and feel like, I owe, so off to work I go. But right now, it's time for Clark Stinks.
I should have never encouraged you to speak.
You must think I'm pretty stupid.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you're right, pal.
As promised, I'm going to start off with a variable universal life insurance policy stink. You say VUL policies stink like an overused outhouse, and maybe you do too. There was no middleman. Nobody sold me anything, but a friend gave me advice that this was a good choice for life insurance, and in 2000, we approached an insurer directly and purchased a $180,000 VUL for my wife and a $450K VUL for myself. This we determined was enough, combining it with the life insurance we already had through our jobs. With $500 monthly payments, we funded them in about 3 to 5 years, at which time they became self-funding, payments made by the interest earned, and we stopped putting money into them. In 2020, I became 60 and we canceled my VUL policy and used the savings to pay cash for a new CRV for north of $30K with none of it taxable. My wife is 5 years younger, so we still have her policy, which is currently worth about $50K, soon to fund my new truck. I did some calculations and determined that we have made between 10 to 11% over the years on her policy, over and above the cost of the insurance. The company has told me I can borrow 95% of the money out of the account without canceling it and not have any tax implications even if I don't pay it back. It will just lapse. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me. What am I missing? Granted, I could have just invested that money and maybe received more, but we needed the life insurance as we had 3 kids. How is this not a good deal, Dan?
So the time at which, all right, so Dan, the whole thing with variable universal life, first, you bought from a direct seller that's what's known as a low load. That's a rare breed. So you didn't pay the level of commissions that people normally pay buying a variable universal life. Good for you. Second, the time cycle that you owned the variable universal life worked to your advantage. The reason that it worked to your advantage is that you own variable universal life during a good cycle for the investment markets. You held it long enough, you bought in long enough, and you ended up A-okay with it. It's a big roll of the dice with universal life products. What has happened to so many people who wish they knew at the time it blew up, they wish they'd known it at the time they were being pitched to buy, is a variable universal life policy can essentially go insolvent. And you're hit with a capital call where you have to come up with money in order to keep the policy live. If it does go extinct, you can end up with all your money gone and a big tax bill. Now, on the thing with you being told that none of it is taxable, it depends on the specific circumstances in which you transact, the policy you have, and how you exit that policy. I would not necessarily trust that you can just stop paying on the policy, draw 95% of it out, and have it go extinct without generating any tax problems. I'm skeptical of that but that's what there are accountants for. In your case, I'm thrilled it worked out for you, but it doesn't mean that having one is necessarily a good idea.
I don't understand why you state that you cannot get out of Medicare Advantage and that you're stuck in it forever. You can switch from a MA plan to original Medicare during 2 periods each year. Medicare Advantage open enrollment, January 1st to March 31st, and Medicare open enrollment, October 15th to December 7th. Millions of people consider, choose, and switch Medicare plans every year. The 3 C's, cost, coverage, and choice, are reasons why some people disenroll from their MA plan and join Original Medicare. A study published in 2023 found that the group with the single highest rate of switching from MA to Original Medicare were enrollees with more health needs and high costs. Please tell me where you got the information that one cannot get out of the plan once enrolled. John.
John, thank you. And technically you're correct, and I appreciate your post. Right, so here's the issue. When you go from an Advantage plan back to Original Medicare, which, yes, as you stated, you can do, the problem is Medicare Part B doesn't cover all your expenses. So people who leave an Advantage plan need a Medigap policy too, which is known as a supplemental. In most states, although there are states that are an exception, and I don't know what state you're from, but in most states, you have to medically underwrite at that point. You lose your ability to not go through medical underwriting. So if you have developed any condition, and as you get older, you're more likely to have a pre-existing, you cannot then get the Medigap policy. And also, if you have a pre-existing, other Advantage plans likely aren't going to want you if you just wanted to switch from one to another. So that's the problem, is that only a handful of states give you the ability to migrate at enrollment periods and not have to go through medical underwriting. That's why I say it's like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can't ever leave. And that's the problem. These policies should be made portable. Unfortunately, in most states, they're not.
Clark. I'm an 86-year-old faithful listener. When you do segments on watching out for your elders, you should realize many of us are quite capable. And so please direct the cautions to us directly as well. Thank you for your wonderful podcast, Virginia.
Virginia, thank you very much. That is well taken, and I will be aware of that and be more careful with how I state that in the future.
I would highly suggest you invest in some deodorants at the Dollar Tree. Your discussion on cheap prescription glasses is fine, but you're missing critical information that you include when you speak on other subjects. For example, when discussing a last will and testament, you say you may do it on your own unless you have extended complexities such as a large merged family. It is no different with eyeglass prescriptions. Buying eyeglasses at Warby Parker, Zenni, Costco, or Sam's Club is fine if you have a simple prescription for spectacles, but if it is a complex prescription that may be correcting astigmatism and or a need for high-index progressive lenses, one needs to see a professional optician, not some online service or simple clerk in a white coat in a warehouse club. Mike,
thank you very much for that. I get it, what you're saying about the Zenni or any of the other online sellers of glasses. I would respectfully disagree with you. The people who work at the optical centers at Costco and Sam's Club are very, very capable people, and I would put them up against any of the people at any independent optician. They are true professionals, and I don't think you have a deterioration in the quality of professionalism, training, or service when you sit down at the optical at either of the warehouse clubs. And if I'm wrong about that, I will be surprised.
though not overly pungent, there was an aroma when Clark discussed determining the amount of life insurance to purchase. While it's true that for future payments will be worth less due to the impact of inflation, financial needs will often also be lower as the mortgage is paid down, children leave the nest, and retirement savings accumulate. One approach is to split the coverage across 2 policies, each with different maturity dates, which could provide more coverage in the earlier years when needs are greater while reducing the overall cost. Steve.
Steve, that is a very accurate statement. You are right in many cases that people benefit from having life insurance of different maturities. Here's the way I approach life insurance when I talk about buying level term. Do you know it's almost impossible to get somebody from saying, yeah, I probably do need to buy an insurance policy, to getting to the point where they've actually had the policy issued? It is so hard to get people to do it. So what I try to do, and this is really more like a behavioral economics thing, is I don't look for perfect for people when I'm pitching level term insurance. I'm trying to get people to get level term insurance, which is why I have these very streamlined, very simple ways of deciding how much coverage you need, and why I also have a tendency on Clark.com to talk about the sites where you don't have to go through the medical exam and all that. And if you qualify, you have instant issue. So I can eliminate all those roadblocks along the way that people get overwhelmed by and they just don't get around to buying it. And then something tragic happens, they pass away, and it's too late, past too late, to protect their family. So that's why you hear me do very, very streamlined, do this, do this, do this, do this, to get life insurance, just because I'm trying to get people to, what does Nike say, just do it?
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to do. But your statement is correct, that if you slice it more precisely, it would be better. It would be more in the category of perfect, where what I recommend is just in the category of good.
You had a caller that was struggling to deposit cash, and you suggested going directly into a bank. This is good advice, but I'm not an advocate for opening another bank account for such a small purpose. Here's what I do. I have a Chase credit card, and there are plenty of Chase branches all over. I just go in and pay my credit card bill in cash directly to the teller. I'm set up for auto pay each month to pay in full, but if you go in before the payment date, it will work just like paying it off directly from my bank account. It's a very simple way to deposit the cash, in quotes. I actually like your advice about using the cash for spending money better. You have a much higher leg up in negotiations if you're paying in cash and are more likely to get a discount, especially on services rendered for things around the house. Keep up the good work and good luck to your Falcons, Matt.
Matt, thank you. And college football's underway already. The NFL just around the corner, and hope springs eternal. Last 3 seasons, my Falcons were 7-10. Maybe we can go 10-7. Maybe. Anyway, I love your idea that if you have Chase cards, which have so much market share, you have Chase branches near you, your idea what to do with cash is fantastic, and one I've never heard anyone suggest.
Okay. You don't stink, but you smell like a person who uses very little detergent when doing laundry, LOL. When people ask you about saving money on college for their children, I've never heard you mention the Modern States program, which can get a student all their freshman year credits for free through CLEP, ING, which stands for College Level Examination Program. The program's funded through many grants, which allow the student to take online classes and then take a CLEP test at no cost. If they pass, they're granted college credits for that class through Modern States. The CLEP exams are already accredited by 2,900 colleges and universities. My daughter's doing this and will finish her accounting degree in under 3 years. Modern States has combined with her FAFSA, state and local scholarships have significantly reduced our college costs. Keep up the great work. And that is from Stephanie.
Stephanie, I adore you, and I've never met you. And I want to tell a frustration, Christa. I kept trying to get our son, not Christa, my son, Lane, my son, tried to get our son to do the college level examination program tests so he could finish those courses and not have to worry about him in college, so he could spend more time at the flight school. Because if you know anyone who's gone through a professional pilot program, the time commitment is enormous, and I just couldn't get my son to focus on it. Your advice is great, and I have never mentioned it ever on the podcast, and thank you for bringing it up.
Clark, you stink with home repair and upgrade suggestions and should stay away from recommending anything. First, climbing up on your roof to cut a phone line, now recommending that Jason hook into the same wires as the dryer to charge his EV. This is a horrible idea. These wires will not be able to handle the constant load required for an EV and will be a fire hazard. The safest bet is to install a dedicated EV breaker for the EV and hardwire the line straight to the charger. There have been lots of instances of the electrical sockets failing because they can't handle the constant load required for the EV. Jason, if you want to understand pricing, look up your local codes on what is required for wire size based on the amount of amps you will need. Then look up the price of materials needed to run the line, for example, the wire, conduit, breaker, etc. With this ballpark number for materials, you will understand how much the electrician is paying for his time. And note, copper wires are very expensive, which will dramatically increase the cost of the install, the further you are away from the breaker box. Still love you, Clark. Curtis.
So, Curtis, we have a setup like that where we flip a switch, and it turns off the power to the dryer, and it instead sends it to the electric vehicle charger. And if I've created a danger to ourselves and to the dwelling, gosh, I feel terrible about that. I've never heard that from anyone before you right now.
Well, it sounds like if you can switch it off like that, that's probably the safety measure that the electrician did for you.
He was saying don't do it at all,
Yeah.
but we have the switch that we do that's right at it, that you can't dry clothes while the vehicle is charging. It's one or the other.
Your response to the helicopter parents who are expecting a return on investment from their comms major daughter smells like a dorm room full of dirty clothes and rotting food when you return from summer break. From your response, it sounded like you were in the group of people who view college as simply an expensive trade school, but a real college education goes far beyond just learning a marketable skill, and the experience will pay dividends to the daughter throughout her life. As an engineering major decades ago, I didn't understand why I was required to take quote-unquote worthless courses like literature and philosophy, but now I understand that it's all about broadening your mind and being exposed to new ideas. I don't know if critical thinking and learning how to learn are parts of a liberal arts education, but those were the most valuable skills I acquired in college. The hands-on technology skills taught were obsolete before I graduated. The value of an education also extends beyond the classroom. Most students will meet people from wildly different backgrounds and cultures and hopefully learn that there is a world and points of view outside their social media echo chamber. Brian.
Brian, thank you. And Brian, actually, I agree completely with you. This is like going back to the thing about buying level term and slices and dices. So the country has turned against college. There's a strong backlash against college. And so right now, I believe very much in a college education. I have an undergraduate degree. I have a master's. All three of my kids, two graduated from college. The third is in college. I mean, I really am a strong believer in college. And so I agree with everything you said. But right now, college has a marketing problem. And so if I'm going to give a good pitch about why someone should go to college, you hear me tie it into career, skill set. I talked recently about how these particular college degrees earn the highest amount of pay. You're completely right. When a kid gets there, he or she is going to learn about a lot more things than just that major, just as you did, just as I did. But in order to get past the strong societal objection to college right now, I got to talk straight on how there's an if-then benefit for career. So, yes, do I censor my words about college from my thoughts? Completely. The reason I do it is I want to open up a parent or a kid's mind to the possibility of how valuable college can be, because I know it can be, and I know it pays lifelong dividends. And, Christa, as we talked about recently on the podcast, was a liberal arts major, struggled in her 20s. That is completely common, that people who don't take a specific career program in college with set skills, hard skills that the marketplace values instantly with that degree, that it takes longer to establish yourself. But for most people, it will pay off well over time. No doubt it's true. Coming up ahead, speaking of work, a lot of workers are really not happy in what they're doing as we approach Labor Day, and we're in Labor Day weekend straight ahead. And a lot of people are burned out on a job or wish they weren't even there. It affects our actual productivity and economic growth and the success of the company they're at. Everybody loses when somebody's unhappy at a job. I want to talk about that straight ahead. So a new study by Gallup estimates that workers that are unhappy in your organization, workers just generally mailing it in when they're at work, reduce GNP, or GDP actually, by 9%. That you got people that are sleepwalking at work, basically, because they hate it. They hate you. They hate the place that you run. And it's why I talk so much. And this is to employers, not you as an employee. The ultimate in free enterprise self-interest is enlightened self-interest. Treat the workers well. We're celebrating labor this Labor Day weekend and on Monday. You want to be more successful in your business? You want to make more money? Treat your workers like gold, and they will make you more gold. It is proven, it is fact. If you don't truly value the people that work for you, they're going to figure that out. And they're not going to value the job they have with you or your company's goals. And I know every company has these stupid HR statements that talk about how much they value the people. And the company's all about the people. It's not slogans. It's not about the words. It's what's the culture like? Do you really value your employees? And if you pull up to your business and you park in a space that's reserved for you, you got it wrong from the get-go, because you told every employee that they're not important. You know who should be in your space? It should be the employee of the month should be parking in that space, not you. You got to be there. It's your company that you want to survive and thrive. They don't got to be there. Everything about your mentality needs to be serving that employee. The companies that do well always put the worker first, not the customer. Not the customer. Why the employee? Because if you want the employee to care about that customer, you got to care about them first. So they care about what they're doing. And then ultimately the payoff is the companies that take care of their employees have employees that take care of the customer. Think how many people are just mailing it in. And then this garbage with companies using all this surreptitious software to spy on their employees, telling them that you don't trust them. Do you know a new survey finds that roughly half of U.S. workers would take a pay cut just to not be demeaned that way by you as an employer? Come on. Treat people well. Think about a place you worked before you owned your own business, where they didn't care about you at all. How much did you care about them? How much? Not very much. Right? 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 So as we approach Labor Day, I'm just telling you, it's a fact. You want to make more money? You want to have a more successful company? It starts with you. From the top, you treating every worker with respect and dignity and kindness. Yeah, they got a business. You got a business to run, and they got to produce. And they don't produce. There are times you're going to have to let somebody go. And that's part of the cycle. But do you know what? The other employees, if you're treating everybody well, truly well, with dignity and kindness, they're going to understand when somebody has to be let go because they're not doing a good job. Fact. If you want to really have good employees, you celebrate them.
All right. Kelly in Florida wrote in and said, my husband and I have been maxing out Roth IRAs each year since 2019. While listening to one of your podcasts, we realized the target date fund we've been investing in is not a low-cost index fund, and the expense ratio is 0.69%. Going forward, we will be buying the low-cost target index fund with an expense ratio of 0.12%.
Oh, this is Fidelity. Did they say it was Fidelity?
No.
Yeah,
the question
Fidelity.
is, should we sell our existing shares and buy the low-cost fund? The current value in our target funds is $33K and $34K.
All right, first of all, fantastic that you've developed this much money in your Roth IRA in just 5 years. Fantastic. So, yes, you sell the higher flavor Fidelity choice, and you go into the lower flavor choice. The fact that Fidelity has these two, the index version they did because they had a hole in their system where they were frightfully more expensive than their arch enemy, arch rival, Vanguard. So they came up with the target index fund variety to be able to be more competitive with Vanguard. Not as cheap as Vanguard, but close enough, it's good enough. But their regular target date funds, no, they're way too costly, and that's the right move to migrate your money.
Eric in Ohio wrote in. He says, first, thanks for the podcast. I listen while I work. Anyway, I have a small Roth 401k and rollover IRA at one of your favorite children, Fidelity.
Oh.
I've chosen targeted funds for each, and he lists the funds. I'm reading recommendations to rebalance investments. Does this apply when you're in these types of targeted funds? And if so, how do you do that safely? Do you do it when the market is up or down? I've been in a set and forget it mode, and I do want to learn more about how the markets work.
So, Eric, the whole idea of being in the target fund, and thank goodness at Fidelity, you're in the one that we just talked about, the index variety. The rebalancing is done for you. You don't have anything you have to do. And because it's in a retirement fund, there's no tax implications for the rebalance. So that is part and parcel and part of how the fund is run, and you got nothing you got to do. That's the beauty of the target retirement fund. You don't have to get the allocations right. You don't have to get the investment mixes right. It's all based on the year you anticipate you retiring, and Fidelity or Vanguard handle that automatically for you.
Brian in Georgia says, Clark, if you were transported back to 25-year-old Clark, just starting out fresh from college, but in 2024, what do you think you would do? I assume start a business, but I'm guessing not a travel agency. I'm just curious if you ever thought of different business pursuits.
Oh, I've been in so many different businesses. I am a natural-born entrepreneur. So if I was 25 and I was starting a business,
right now.
and it was not a travel agency.
Well, it's 24, like it's now. So,
yeah. So I mean, the reason the travel agency thing, that's why I started when I was 25. Right. Long ago in the Wayback Machine. Gosh, today, when I think about all the things we hear about from people and all that, I would become either I would get the training, I'd become a fiduciary, fee-only advisor, or I would start a cell phone company because I'm so frustrated by how much people get ripped off by AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile.
Well, no longer though, right? I mean,
because there are all these discounters now that each of them own, and then all these others. I would be one of those scrappy people starting one of these companies and pitching how much money you could save, because that would be what I'd be about.
What about an airline?
No, an airline, you need to be a billionaire first to start an
pretend
airline,
there
then
was
you become
no-
a millionaire.
yeah.
25, I'm not going to have, $1 billion to start that. So when you ask at 25, usually it's somebody who's young and hungry, and you don't have the capital, so it's got to be intellectual. How would you make it work? What would you do that would be of great service to people? And I'll keep thinking about that.
Yeah.
Maybe on a future podcast, I'll say, no. I wasn't sleeping one night, and I thought, oh, that's what I would start if I was 25 years old today. So I love the question. And I want to thank you so much for joining us this week. And I've mentioned several times today that Monday's a holiday. I never miss a holiday. I always take my holidays off. And I hope you have a great Labor Day on Monday. If you work in a job you have to work Monday, thank you for being there for all the rest of us. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll be back at your service on Tuesday.